as you can. And Valkyrie, she's everyone's girl at the minute, especially when it comes to Ban's ace.
Certainly is. Nobody wants to take Valkyrie out as it stands, other than take her out at the banning phase and not have her present.
Brilliant.
The thing is, the black eye cameras, they're just an absolute nightmare in terms of information. You know, they are difficult to spot out. It can dictate the requirement to bring an IQ on some sites. And places like Chalet, I would liken Chalet to Consulate in that it's closely surrounded by a lot of trees and a lot of sort of natural and man-made furniture, if you will, on the outside. And that just makes for an absolute nightmare when it comes to Valkyrie cams, because you can just pop them out there onto so many different surfaces and it is just super difficult to find them. So no surprise to see her gone. Site number 1 then, as we head into the action, is going to be Master and Office. So we're going all the way up to that top floor. We're going to see a battle over mezzanine, I would expect, with the attacking team of FAV trying to get themselves access to the balcony wall, get that breached, and get on into the A site. We haven't seen too many Solarium pushes recently, Des.
No, not an absolute ton. I think because some view it as quite hard to get control of, given you are mainly on the repel, you need to get control of Trophy and push your way up, or stop flankers coming from below at least. You also need someone to play on the office window. So already that's 2 operators being committed to the flank watch. Something that can then restrict you when it comes to actually getting control of Solarium itself. Let's see how these two teams have that approach. Haven't seen them, of course, play on it previously. I look back down some stats, by the way. FAV have drawn a number of Flores bans. I know I touched on Meryu earlier on. Of course, he plays for Guts, not FAV. It was me getting a small confusion there. That's why I corrected myself earlier. But across the teams in Japan, it does feel like they're the ones leaning towards things like the 3 hard breaches on Clubhouse, like bringing along the Flores. It's kind of their go-to. So again, it does make a lot of sense when you're looking at it that way.
T1 starting things off aggressively then. Replica looking for that spawn peak. Will not be successful this time. Has to dip away on the frost and look for his opportunities elsewhere. We've got 3 stacking up on that library balcony, so this tells me that we're going to be attempting to take the south side of the map, get control over mezzanine and get the breach wall open, as I suggested, around the balcony area. Shin's just going to stop his progress for the time being to assist with the drone in now. Then we've got the deployable shield on Piano that we see used so often. We saw Virtue from G2 using that to great effect recently, and it's going to be difficult to clear out potentially here, because normally the Flores drones, the Roteros, would be used to send in and clear out the utility from that location, but that's not going to be possible here.
A little bit of a kicker for Shin as well, where the flashes don't get caught inside those ADSs. One gets caught, second gets caught, and now you might get the Zofia come swinging in here, looking to trash it. And there it is indeed, the impact's coming singing through. They must know about the man at the back, apparently don't quite do so. But you are right, without the Flores, you'd normally see clearing those things out. That was a very entrenched position that does require a good chunk of utility to get themselves through.
1 minute 30 into the round, we're halfway through and we're yet to see an opening kill. Nobody's been able to start off the action just yet. Shin gets underneath with the book. He's looking to clear out any utility to protect that wall, but he's going to get cleared out as Yeti finds him on that vertical angle with a headshot. So that leaves us now 5 versus 4.
All right, good. I mean, nice to contest it vertically. We saw this in the Rogue game as well, where Leon, I believe, was the Yana, always getting below, looking to contest the office wall to remove things like the Electro Claws. And you would see players trying to contest from the vertical above on the reverse angle to shut down that free and easy clearance that you so often see. So playing up much the same way as we've seen in EU before the kills explode in front of us. 2 kills going the way of FAV, and in they come. Typon, the one pushing in from Piano, finally getting traded out by Replica. A 2 versus 2 and 45 seconds to play.
This is just turning into a bloodbath at this point in time. Replica on the frost is just holding a tight angle.
There they are.
It's all going to come down to Afro and number 2 though, who step around, managed to find that final kill in Bathroom, and that is going to close out the round for FAV. A bit of a chaotic start from them really, where they just sort of went in and got the kills that they needed to, but it wasn't all plain sailing.
I remember summarising FAV at some point last year, and I think I did a couple of other teams as well, where it's like the first half of the round plays very structured. You know, this big focus on clearing out Piano, members of the defenders moving back once it got cleared out. It plays very much like you'd see around the world. And then we get to a certain point in the round where it's like, all right, guys, forget the strat. Let's go and kill people. And it's not saying so much coldly, just forget the strat and go for kills. It's not quite that direct. But there does come a time when the aggression gets switched on and everyone pushes in hyper-aggressively. Do you want to touch on this quick pick coming in for FAV, by the way? I was wondering in the last round when we saw K-Razor, I think it was, playing on the Lion. I was like, is this kind of a, not an adoption of what G2 are doing, but a similar sort of trend where you might see the Lion traded out for, say, the Capitao or any other operator that Hungary was bringing along for G2, like the Ying at some point? Not quite, but they have changed things out to bring along the IQ and the Capitao here, which is quite an interesting little change-up. The IQ makes me curious.
It is indeed. I think, given the lack of success of the Buck last time, I think it may be aimed towards clearing out something like a Kaid Electrical from underneath, because of course Shin went in, opened that floor up, and it does expose you a bit, whereas the IQ does have the advantage there. If the floor is soft, the shots can just go in through that surface. Don't need to open it up and leave yourself less prone to that sort of reverse attack on the angle that you've just opened up. So I think that could be part of it there. K-Razor then able to just spot them out without exposing himself. Replica is looking for that spawn peak again. He's not going to get it as Afro goes to the west rather than the east, so there will be absolutely no joy for him. The Frost just moving away once again. FAV, they're likely to look to rinse and repeat here. Just get themselves control over Library and Mezzanine. This time K-Razor likely to go downstairs, I think, to clear out those electrical gadgets, and then they will try to breach and push into site.
Ooh, the timing on that as well. I was wondering if there was a drone maybe that was catching him some office, could see him pulling back through, and maybe the answer was yes, as he very narrowly escapes death there. Neilio, I know you look at it and go 75 HP, but a couple more bullets from Afro at that kind of range, that would be a dead Jaeger and a great starting kill it would have been for FAV. At least now you're going to see a similar sort of setup once again, though, where it's going to be trying to break open this sort of piano hold. You can see the two shields there this time round, plus ADS is no doubt coming in from Neilio. Once more, the south wall is also electrified off, so you'll want someone to get in below to look at clearing that out. So there's always things to consider that it's playing out the same way. Watch for once this gets cleared out, what happens next, because that was when we saw the aggression coming out of FAV. Typon running in, one kill in piano, a second one coming into office. That's what caught T1 off guard, so I want to see if they're going to catch it this time round.
The electrical hasn't been cleared out yet, but as I suggested, that is what the IQ has been brought along to do, using that scanner to try and get the shots through, unsuccessfully so far. Try again, and again, and again, but not doing the job at the moment. Obviously, the strong argument there being that the Buck is able to get a better line of sight, particularly around those metal beams that won't be making life any easier for K-Razor. Shots are put through blindly from the opposite side, but as we can see, blow out the floor instead. It will open up at least the bottom of the wall, but the problem here is it'd be very difficult to move through that. It's a possibility that you could maybe crouch, prone and sort of crawl through there, but you're leaving yourself massively exposed to do that.
Yeah, never seen anyone lay down on top of that little cabinet before either. That's a bit of a new one coming out from Yeti. But yeah, it's one of those that you look at with the IQ and just think, well, I haven't got to open the floor and expose myself in the process, so I understand it. But as you say, they were struggling then to get rid of those in the first place. 2 kills coming out, potentially a third on the back of the C4. No, narrowly misses number 2, who's got the longer range angle here, just waiting for this guy to step out, gets himself zapped. Has got to be so careful here. He's on about 15 HP. Out comes Yeti, hits the headshot anyway. A 5 versus 1 for T1. And that'll be a very cozy round 2. Much better defended than the previous round, and the big change, that second shield a little bit deeper in piano, that gave them another angle to play from once the closer one had been cleared out.
T1 letting FAV know that they are in for a game here, that they're not going to have that 4th spot easily. That is going to be the key. Guts, I'm sure, are going to be watching this game with fascination, because, of course, if FAV don't come away with something here, it goes a long way towards securing Guts into their playoff position, and that's going to be a big relief for them ahead of that Cyclops game. Any challenge that can drop away before that point is just going to ease the pressure a little bit, because, of course, as we know, Cyclops already secure, but they're a team that are very, very difficult to beat, and Guts are not going to want to have to do that to get their place. That won't make life any easier for them. So round 3 here, back in the T1 FAV game. We're going to be heading down to Bar and Gaming this time. T1 securing Master and Office at the second attempt. So this time it's going to be the mid-floor site. They're going to try to hold on to Library once again, I would imagine. Deployable shield there on the Library stairs says there will, as a minimum, be somebody playing in that location actively on the stairs. But with the hatch open as well, I'd expect that they will look to possibly even actively keep somebody alive. Maybe not inside a Library, but certainly on Mezzanine.
Absolutely, and I think here with the change coming in where you've got the line and the Capitao, not something that we saw in EU last week. We saw one or the other, very rarely both. screams to me more than anything else that they want this added utility that you get from the team. Whenever I see Capitão and Zofia together, by the way, I'm always drawn to just how much utility they've got between them. The 2 smoke bolts, 2 fire bolts, 2 impacts, 2 concussions. And I know you might say, well, they haven't really got flashes, so really it's actually less utility than others. Yes, but these are high impact pieces of utility, not the kind of thing that you really want to be throwing into an ADS, for example. You want to be getting them into key positions, or at the very least, the impacts plus the gadgetry coming out of the Capitão. Let's keep a close eye on those and see what that execute looks like when it comes round. Imagine for FAV, as you're seeing out of Shin now, you want this top floor control, and as always, there's a man dug into the back corner they want to clear out.
And they're going to do that with the Capitão asphyxiation arrow there. Number 2 managing to get that kill. There was absolutely nothing that Yeti could do to escape that, but 11 manages to get in and get a kill onto Shin, somebody that's struggling to get in the game so far. He's been the opening death twice and then goes down again in those early encounters.
Absolutely. I mean, sure, at the 1-for-1, you maybe said with the first kill coming in onto the Frost, it would have been fantastic. You get that library clear the way that you need it to be, to then lose the trade back. A little bit of a stinger. So 4 versus 4 and 2 minutes to play. Still plenty of time, and 11's just like, okay, I guess you're going to walk past my head, no problem. Traded out. K-Razor then traded back in response as they got constant back and forth. I mean, look at the kill feed. Someone gets a kill, 3 seconds later, they're dead themselves, and it's the way it's been going back and forth seemingly constantly at this point. As it all comes down to it, though, it's another 2 versus 2, and still 100 seconds to play within the round.
Afro taking the shot onto the Banshee there, just clearing it out. Looking to get something working for FAV here, but it's just slowed down a little bit as Typon gets himself into the drone. Afro will join him as well. So they're just trying to gather information, which could be critical on the positioning of these remaining 2 operators in Replica and Neilio, but they are pretty much locking themselves into sight now. We've got Replica inside of the connector. We've got Neilio just inside of that B-bomb, looking to use the couch to offer some cover, but it's going to offer 0 cover from above as Typon finds a headshot from high through that hatch and leaves now FAV in a 2v1 with 45 seconds to go. Des, this is an absolute age for Replica to hold on.
And 3 drones on side if they really need it on the side of FAV. I mean, at this point, might just try and walk in blind, which makes me a little bit nervous, especially when, as you say, they've got 45 seconds to play with. They're not quite sure where he is, but maybe looking to go in for a bar plant here. Yes, they will. It's going to force Replica to move out. A temporary 1 versus 1 is established, but doesn't know where the man is. Looks to his right. He might see the planter, sees the head, but can't quite find it. Now he knows that he's in this post-plant situation. 35 seconds on the clock. He's got about 20 to find himself both kills and look to start sticking that diffuser, because it's going to get pretty scrappy, especially when these cross angles are being set up. Thought he might see the head, but misses it. Doesn't catch Afro to the left-hand side. FAV close out the round.
Good attack from FAV there, just in that 2 versus 1, focusing on the objective, knowing that they had the cover in place, getting that diffuser down and really making Replica's life difficult. So FAV, they take the lead once again, and I know T1 have got a round on the board, but I just get the feeling here that this is already looking like a FAV game for me. They just seem to be that little bit sharper. I'm not sure that it's going to bounce back and forward. If T1 can do that, if they can keep snatching rounds and maybe get to the half at 3-3, that is going to be a big steal for T1 right now, because this FAV team for me just feels like they're on the cusp. They're on the edge. They're just about to hit that downhill slope potentially and start gathering some real momentum.
It's like I said earlier on about both Guts and FAV, is I feel that week to week, you just don't really know which version of the team you're going to get. Are you going to get the one that can beat the #1 team, Cyclops, or are you going to get the team that's going to lose to the bottom place team in T1? That's exactly what happened to Guts, by the way. It's worth touching on. They lost to T1, they lost to Talon, 2 of the bottom teams. And then it beat Cloud9 and Fnatic, who are arguably 2 of our best teams in the whole competition. It's very back and forth, and it kind of, again, variable, which always gives me worry. Consistency is like my #1 keyword in Siege, not just on a team level, but week to week for players as well. That is something that you need to be able to maintain. One player I will give a quick shout out to, by the way, Typon. 2 2Ks, first round 2K charging in through Piano and Office. The same again in the second round, or at least trying to look for it. And then obviously in that third round just a second ago, finds a kill, peeking onto the hatch of all things. Beautiful way to get things moving. Unfortunately, though, obviously losing that 1 round in the process, but a good start for a support player of all things, Ace. I'm sure you're very proud seeing a Thermite player walk through and get kills like this.
This is it. The support players do far more than you'd think sometimes. I'm just interested in that frost mat that's been put down there as well. We just saw a great shot of it from Replica inside of the sort of flora and fauna that is in the corridor outside the kitchen door, outside the dining door, sorry. That's the one there. Look at it. Just sort of hidden, covered. I mean, they're snapping shut on legs anyway. When you've got somebody pushing that, trying to hold that angle, the thing is, when you're pushing that corridor, you have to hold the angle on the door.
You do,
You've no choice but to be in your ADS. And that Frostmat's, and you're taking the wider angle to get the better view.
Correct.
It's a great position.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. That's it. They're hoping that someone will be sticking inside the fauna, as you say, as they push at the back of the wall to look through the doorway. The longer the angle that you've got to the door, the better, as it's less likely that the defenders are going to see your shoulder peeking around that corner. That's how angles work in FPS games, ladies and gents. And here we go. Ooh. Perfect timing from Shin.
Better from Shin.
They just get the read on it. I mean, in that case, they're either a drone's called him out or they just have the expectation that someone could be pushing at that time. He's either very lucky or it's excellent team droning.
Shin, I mentioned, has been a little bit slow to get started in these rounds, but coming in with an opening kill, that's going to be a big steal for him. It's going to really get him involved in the round, and hopefully the game, it's going to be the catalyst for him. Afro getting a kill onto 11, leaving us 5 versus 2 now, and 5, as I said, just feel like they're starting to hit that downhill. Afro, he's certainly moving at a pace now. Gets himself a kill, 5 versus 1. It's all up to Replica, and that's inside the first minute and a half. FAV are absolutely flying at the minute.
I mean, at this point, they've just really shut down everything T1 are trying to do. 11, I thought, was being a bit cheeky playing inside a solarium when you know they could push you from bathroom. FAV identified that, moved someone onto the bathroom window, have the pinch, someone on solarium window, one on bathroom. There's no way he walks away alive. Replica, again, is left in the 1vx and can't do anything about it. 2 rounds in a row. He's failed to find a kill in those clutch situations. Not that it would have mattered. It's a flawless round coming out for FAV.
Great play from FAV. They just got in there. They managed to manipulate their opportunities, create those crossfire covers, and get the kills as the defenders tried to move around. And then at 5-1, smart move. Just take the opportunity to get the diffuser down once again. Just apply even more pressure to that single man. You can't ever switch off. You know, we do see, very rarely, but we do see those 1v5, 1v4s turned around, and a couple of kills for, you know, coming in quick succession for the remaining defender can change things drastically and quickly. So just focusing on the round, on the objective, get the diffuser down and look to move on to the next round. Good play from FAV.
Really good so far. Let's see how the top floor goes once again. We have been up here 3 times so far, of which back in round 2 we did see the eventual win coming in for T1, the only win they have found so far. Again, with this read, I would be very surprised if there wasn't a drone that informed them he was pushing upstairs like that. Otherwise, it is just blind luck, and it's quite magical that he's got away with something like that, to be honest. The kind of thing that we actually saw, I can't think of how many times he must have seen that angle being challenged by Citizen in G2's game. Holding up there on the smoke and just swinging round, players are pushing up, easy kill for him, swing onto the window, sometimes a 2k, sometimes a 3k. Just feels very expected that you're going to find someone crouch walking up those stairs, especially as the defenders, and it's why we saw some teams pushing into snowmobile to start, moving their way upstairs into lobby, getting control of that, and using it as a springboard moving forwards. I do want to see in this round if FAV tries something a little bit different as well, because it's been a good round and then a not so good round attack in this site where things have been very simple coming in from the south, and I think in a way T1 know what to expect. We touched on Solarium not being super popular at the minute. Would like to see FAV's take on that if they choose to go for it.
Well, they have just opened the Solarium window after spawning on that side, so we might see a little bit more pressure applied. But once again, we've got the 3 players outside of Library. This has been the initial push every single time from FAV. We've got the Gemini decoy going in there, just feeding information back in so that Shin can get in quickly. But once again, T1 come in with that opening kill on the top floor site. Crazy Boy able to take out Afro, and that's a big loss with the Zafir. A lot of utility, a lot of clearance. That could leave the shield in place on the piano if it's not already cleared out. We do have nades on the side of the Sledge and the Iana, but they're a little bit more difficult to get in there and use effectively.
Absolutely. I mean, after already being down as the big man who walked out with a 3k in the previous round, you'll be lamenting that. The Zofia of all things being lost too, where you really want the Zofia on side to help you burn through this piano hold. In comes the Yana feeding a bit of information back and forth. Nade's going to come singing in, but you know there are ADSs there, guys. You've got the Buck on side to help burn through those. We saw in round 1 that they were missed out by the ADSs. 2 frags remain, and here, I think already, T1 have taken preventative measures. Neilio stepping back at least for a second, but that ADS might find itself reactivating here. It already has and catches the 1. Second one comes through deep into another ADS. 2 ADSs deep. They've just caught pretty much everything they needed to. Thankfully, there were a couple of flashes mixed in, so 1 frag does survive and gets the shields. That's it cleared out, but for a second there, I thought FAV were going to be in hot water race.
Certainly could have been. They're already a man down, and leaving those shields in place is not something they want to do. Neither is losing K-Razor. Headshot from Crazy Boy. Second kill on the round for him, and T1 looking good on the top floor once again. But number 2 steps up, can get one, cannot find number 2 as Crazy Boy with a triple on the round. Shut down now by Type on 3 versus 2, and it's coming down to that type of push again from FAV. Surely here, no, Type on takes some damage, doesn't see the man quickly enough, but he does manage to take a chip of Replica before being peaked by 11. T1 almost certainly going to close this out. That's what happens. It's all down to Crazy Boy and 11 as they find the 5 between them, and T1 close out another round, keeping themselves at least in the fight here. 3-2 to FAV now.
Yeah, that's what I was worried about on that site. Again, is that T1 have figured out that defense already. They've got the 2 shield setups. They've moved a couple of ADSs around and just really left the side of FAV guessing, it felt like, for the most part. And we saw how it almost went down with the ADSs catching all but one of those frag grenades. If that had not got through and removed the shield for them, that could have been much tougher for FAV. But Crazy Boy, living up to his name, big 3K in the early round, does help them secure it there. So, okay, 2 rounds, not too bad. I know we always say it, but Chalet, again, is one of those newer maps that a lot of teams consider to be slightly attacker-leaning at the moment. A 4-2 half, you won't lose any sleep over, but I think in T1 shoes, he's saying, look, this could get rough in the second half, so let's try and get that 3rd round on the go now.
Going to be down to Bar and Gaming once again for the final defence here from T1. If this goes as it did previously back in round 3, we would expect a win for FAV. They were able to pretty easily assault onto this one. They found themselves in a 2 versus 2 at the end, but were able to pick it apart reasonably easily. So FAV will be looking for more of the same here. I'm sure if they can lock that out at a 4-2 half, get themselves onto defence, you would expect a bit of confidence from them coming in that they'll be able to close out the game, especially with the stakes involved for FAV here. Now, Crazy Boy applying an ADS there on the mezzanine, so I think we're going to see some presence from T1 just outside of that library wall. Need to try and hold on for a bit longer this time, not get themselves killed out. That was part of the problem last time, but they did take a few players with them at least.
Absolutely. Bulletproof cam this time, watching inside of this elbow hallway. No frost mats. You'll be delighted to know, Ace. Not quite in the same spot as last time, just waiting for someone to come walking in. And speaking of which, FAV, they've already got themselves inside, and Taipan, maybe a bit too aggressive there without any support from the team. 20 seconds in, and he's found himself already taken out in the 1 versus 1 against Replica. This is often what some teams are regarded for, is that aggression that you get in APAC, but sometimes it does get a bit over-aggressive like that. If it pays off, you've got yourself the opening kill onto Replica, who's found himself stuck in a number of clutch situations. You lose him, you've lost your main hard breach.
The thing is, that was a great opportunity. Taipon's gone in there aggressively. That's exactly the sort of situation that you're looking for, essentially. If you're going to push into the map that quickly, you want to catch somebody out. And
yeah,
he did get the view onto Replica, really. He's got to win that gunfight, and that gets FAV then the advantage that they were looking for by bringing that early round aggression. But not going to be the case. 11 will be shut down, though, as he just overextends a little bit there, exposes himself by going in front of the door. He's got the reinforced wall to play behind, but just moves too far and gets caught out. So that leaves us 4 versus 4 as we come towards the halfway mark in the round.
There's kind of been 2 or 3 times in this first half, actually, where 11 has been in slightly dicey positions. You know, Solarium, we mentioned about him being tagged out from the bathroom window. That round just there, mezzanine. It's an okay spot to play, but no cover on the back. Afro, yet another kill coming from that window. That was actually where he killed 11 earlier on too. So, good use of these angle cuts. I like what I'm seeing from FAV. They aren't attacking from just one direction. They're making sure they've got all sides surrounded. It's really good to see. Number 2, hyper-aggressive onto Yeti, finds another. 3 versus 2 then. FAV could take this half at 4-2, Ace.
Certainly could do, as they manage once again to get themselves the man advantage, very similar to how they did things before on Bar and Gaming. It's Nelio and Replica once again, the 2 players that we saw last time in this situation that FAV were able to close out. And once again, there is an awful lot of time left on the clock, and that just shows the pace that FAV have been playing these attacks with. Now, K-Razor just about to take the shot through the soft floor, but Afro beats him to it, finding the man through the hatch. There was a Z-ping on there, which just helped him to get in there and pre-fire on to Replica, closing him down. It's Nelio that's left. He's looking for anybody. The one thing he's got as a point of credit here is that he knows that the diffuser is down. Now, steps up to try and defend that area, finds the man on stairs. There's a bit of a battle ensues, but it's going to be number 2 to shut things down with that final kill onto Nelio, and that's another round for FAV. 4-2 at the half. They just need to come in and lock down those defences.
Again, the summary for that half for me was for FAV was just really nice pinches and cuts. I thought the way they were constantly saying, right, there's a player in Solarium, there's a player here that we can isolate, whatever it might be. The speed at which they had someone playing on a window that could see that location, someone playing on the rappel to challenge it or force them in another direction was just really good. And T1, outside of the piano holds, I think really struggled in that half. If they hadn't have had these really kind of creative double shield setups with one ADS down to the south, two to the north, Crazy Boy swinging from bathroom door, that could have been a potential 6-0 half coming out for FAV. Looking really strong right there. I am nervous about the defense coming out for T1. Apparently they are as well because their attack, sorry. I no doubt that's why they're having a conversation now, is that clearly something is not quite right with this team.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think ultimately you'd expect a couple of wins on that top floor site of Master. You know, it is, for my money, probably the best site on the map at the minute in terms of defenders, especially now we're starting to see, like you say, those double deployable shield setups. It's made it very difficult to attack onto. When
you say for your money, do you mean your stats tell you that it's the best site defensively or attacker-wise?
I haven't looked at it coming into today. I know that it does have a high defender win rate. It's usually between that and Bar.
I am very curious.
That and Bar are usually the two best defender sites. Generally speaking, obviously that changes region to region, but I'm fairly sure in saying that Master will be the best defensive site on Chalet at the minute.
Yeah, at least here in APAC, where we've only played on Chalet 3 times, of course not including this game, Bar Gaming has been the most successful defensive. Interestingly, Master and Office has been the worst. That only because it has got the most plays. It's got 11, Bar Gaming has got 10, Kitchen and Dining has got 8, so we haven't seen Snowmobile Garage at all.
No.
And there is a 62% defender win rate here, although you look at maps like Consulate being 74% defender win rate here. You kind of get an idea that that's more down to the teams in the matchup, given the sample size is quite small. Maybe if you're looking at 10, 15 plus maps, then we can have a more accurate conversation.
Well, the thing is, when we're saying as well the defender win rate is lower on one side than another, it's still defender favoured. We've that's an important point to an important fact to point out as well. Sorry, is that Master and Office may be the least successful defender, but it's still leaning in the defender's favour. It's
6 out of 11 times it's been won by the defenders. Bar Gaming 7 out of 10 times been won by the defenders, if you wanted those exact breakdowns. But let's see though if FAV can skew those numbers anymore. Of course, the wins that we saw in that first half no doubt going to change that a little bit.
Actually,
as well
probably level it up, I think.
I think it will,
quick maths off the top of my head. I think it levels
2 for 1 T1 on the Master and Office site and 2 losses. Yeah, it would be balanced out, pretty much accurately. Alrighty, let's see though how the attacks fare for the side of T1. Bringing along the line as we saw in the first half coming out of the side of FAV. That Thermite still sticking true. Clearly a big focus on wanting to get open the office wall, assuming, of course, you're playing on that site. Otherwise, for the side of FAV, nothing huge worth shouting home about. No Kai being brought along here, for example. So, small stylistic changes. Laser gates on side, mute jammers here. I did wonder, actually, because T1 didn't really bring the mute at all in the first half. Would we see a team bringing it along much today? A really popular operator in EU. A little bit less so here in APAC. APAC North, at least.
Once again, immediate attention towards Library, but this time we can see FAV taking a slightly more aggressive stance on the defence. T1, we saw FAV allowed to have access to Library largely. They were able to push in and take control of that. I remember Shin just dashing in there very quickly at the beginning of most rounds, whereas FAV have decided to get up in the faces. But it's not working at the minute as bullets find those faces, but things get levelled out there. Number 2 managing to get himself one, make a nuisance on Mezzanine before being shut down by Crazy Boy. After a quick flurry of kills at the mid-round, we found ourselves 3 versus 2. The advantage sitting with T1, but Crazy Boy is very low health at the minute, using the Gon 6 there, I believe, to just clear out a hole above him. That's going to offer an opportunity for the Thermite to open up that wall. But there's going to be a lot of work for T1 to still do when they do get this opened up.
I love the change in style that we saw coming out, by the way, where I think a couple of ADSs were committed down on Mezzanine to help number 2 hold that spot with reinforced walls, all the rest of it. So it does leave the piano hold a little bit light in a way. They've still got an ADS here. There's a frost mat there. There are shields placed down. They are holding it, but they're relying on, I think, disruption early in the round and utility being forced out of T1 to make things happen. They're coming crouching through the office wall here and a plant coming down from Replica. I think this is where K-Razor and Typhon are going to have to start singing C4 comes out, not going to find anyone, but Typon finds one. A 2 versus 2 in a post plan. Have to see Magic coming out here. Typon into a double in the round. They could just double up and go for this longer angle shot onto 11. This is the problem, though. It's 11 left in a 1 versus 2. Is it the man you want to be facing off against? Probably not. Both starting to square up here, maybe looking to try and go for the defuse. You've got 11 on the longer angle. They know about it as well. Finds one. Can he get the next as he descends his way down the stairs here? Does he know about the man to the left? Yes, he does. Shots initially missing. Typon looking for the 3K, but 11 in the clutch. We mentioned it at the start of it. Can you count the man out in a 1 versus 2? Absolutely not.
Never, and that's just shown exactly why. Able to close it out there, and T1 with a great first attack. As we said, Master has been a good sight for the defenders today. They've won the majority, but that levels things out now as FAV unable to lock things out on the first attempt there. It was all on the back of that mid-round flurry of kills that we saw come in. I think there was 5 in quick succession that just left T1 sitting pretty and able to get in there despite the work that needed to be done, despite the fact that the deployable shields were still active inside of Piano. FAV just unable to hold off the onslaught that came against them. Despite a couple of kills, the diffuser still goes down, and T1 able to close it out and keep things close at 3-4 on the scoreboard.
Absolutely, so they're far from done yet. The FAV, again, you know they're eyeing up that 4th place finish. Guts playing late on it. It'll be a pretty tense couple of hours, I imagine, if you're a FAV player here. You win this game and you go, look, we've done all we can, at least on the final play day, and you know that you need your Japanese friends in Guts to play and fail, ultimately, for you to take that 4th spot away from them. It's hard to call which way it can go. Of course, we'll find out once that 3rd game has concluded, before we see the battle for 2nd taking place between Fnatic and Damwon in the 4th game of the day. Lots to look forward to when I think about all the games we've got coming up.
There is, especially, like you say, I think for me, if FAV can get the win here, that really sets us up for the rest of the day then, because it just throws another team into the mix, and that's exactly what we want. So, not to say we don't want a T1 win. It would be fantastic to see them crown this stage with a victory. We've seen T1 really come back and show us a lot more than they did in stage 1. So, to see that sort of arc of improvement complete itself with a nice final victory would be fantastic in and of itself. But we've got T1, they are pushing in quite aggressively once again. Yeti already in, basement clear, that is done, so they can start taking control over the top floor as well. They're pushing, of course, onto kitchen and dining this time around, and initially it's going to be largely the same process as it was in the last round.
This one, the downstairs, of course, they're not so much committing as much upstairs. There's still some commitment up there, but not quite to the full extent that you would have seen previously. Piano still is the central location where they've got the focus currently going on, and Shin with a pretty aggressive swing out onto Yeti. Wonder what informed that one. I don't know where the bulletproof was from the Aruni, but either that was very well timed, or there's an Ella mine apparently going off. Thank you very much. Easy in my ear. Neilio challenging onto the longer angle. So this time around, rather than fully reinforcing off all of the office side, they want some of it open so they can go for these challenges. FAV wanting to play up that aggression in the early round, disrupt T1 where they can to shut down the later potential execute.
Wall going to be getting open now by Replica. That's going to give the access to the upper floor from the balcony. So that's going to just push people out of Master and Office, which is exactly what T1 are looking to do on the attack here, just wanting to force those defenders away from that position, which starts to give them access towards the default plant spot, because of course that can be monitored, it can be watched, it can be denied from above in that position near the half wall inside of Office. Now Neilio needs to be careful on low health here, being directly challenged from Solarium, looking to see if he can find the man, but it's only going to take 1-2 bullets at the absolute most for Neilio to lose his life, so a quick gunfight could be all it takes. He needs to be very careful there.
It's always the war of windows like that as well, that you could be peeked from either side as soon as you try and vault in, so you're kind of stuck until you can get support from, say, 11 looking to push it from the south. One thing to be mindful of for Neilio there. The rest of T1 are focusing on the site itself, it feels like, though. They've got the plant in hand. Replica looking to get this wall opened up, and it shall be done. No impacts to deny this away. Nothing of the sort, just a mute jammer that got cleared out a second ago. So they've got the 2 walls open here. This is the big focus that you want. Now it's starting to force the defenders far enough back that you can actually think about going in for a player. Neilio, forget about the windows, moved himself down here, but Shin's hanging nearby. A 5 versus 2 for FAV as the 2 members of T1 fall to the dirt. For Crazy Boy and Replica, and 10 seconds left on the clock. Something tells you they're not going to walk away with this one. Number 2 playing around mezzanine once again. Shin to close. Another flawless round coming out for FAV.
I was expecting a little bit of a sort of directed push to get that diffuser down then in the final 10 seconds, but as it turned out, FAV just not needing to, able to find those final 2 kills and close out the round. So that's going to be 5-3 now to FAV, and they're really starting to apply the pressure here to T1, look to get this game closed out. One more round puts them on match point. They're going to be attacking onto Bar and Gaming this time around, and that was a site that they had defending, of course, for FAV. They had success attacking it last time around. So you'd expect them to have a good understanding of the sites. We're going to have the knock brought along by Neilio. Could be a bold move.
I think in most cases when you see the Frost, you know there's a fair to good chance you're going to Bar and Gaming, because every team that brings a Frost along will normally drop 2 in front of this double window, then 1 placed elsewhere to help support defense of the site in other locations. So I think just seeing that on that sheer fact alone, as well, of course, of having the shield that we've seen throughout most of this half, normally brought along by the smoke and by the Frost, just suggests that might be what we'll see. 1 up here on the top floor, and imagine the last 2 will go down by that window that I mentioned just a second ago. That's to stop any kind of quick rushes coming in. You can take the challenge onto the angle. You can have someone playing inside a split, for example, and just say, look, you really want to come in and try and push in here? Well, you've got to shoot the Frost mats first. But for K-Razor, all 3 are on the top floor. I don't think you're going to see a rush coming in out of T1 here, for example, but FAV needs to be mindful of that here. Clearly suggests they want to hold on to this top floor most importantly and worry about the site later on.
Caution there, looking out for spawn peaks from Neilio, not wanting to get caught out in the early round. That would be pretty devastating for T1 at this point in time, to lose a man in the first 10-15 seconds. So caution being applied there, quite rightly so. Now, this is an interesting push from Neilio on the knock. He's going to move in quickly and look to potentially come up on the flank of these defenders here. But
there they are again.
The Elemine, that is once again doing its job there, and is going to make life difficult for the knock and just really slow down that push.
I think they were hoping, to have, him get in completely unseen, hit someone on the flank again and just shut the round down before it really gets underway. But FAV again being helped along by those Ella concussions. Neilio hanging in. I wonder if they know that he's down here. That they do in this case, takes the gunfight and wins it. That was the impact they're looking for, even with that earlier impact going off, the concussion going off, letting them know that he was nearby.
Neilio just wriggles himself away back into the basement, going to keep himself off the radar for the time being, and will no doubt look to pop up from another location. That's exactly what he does, moving on to the main stairs now to clear out mezzanine. And this is great use of the knock, just moving in and clearing out one difficult spot after another, and they're unable to pick him up on cams, unable to find him with that information utility, and it's going to be great play. He gets challenged from the library stairs, but let's not forget that Neilio's job is largely done this round. He needs his teammates to step up as well. But FAV, they've started stepping up as they managed to find a couple of kills, and that's now 3 versus 3 at the half-time.
This is that hatch that we saw Typon get a great kill from in the 2 versus 2 earlier on. 11 looking to find one of his own, but those below him a little bit too elusive at this point to fall into his crosshairs. The one playing inside a split has got the reinforced wall to keep him safe as well, and this is where time, with it being it's about 70 seconds or so, will start running away from T1 if they're not careful. You look at it now and say, 70 seconds in a 3 versus 3, tons of time to play with, and you're right, but you don't want to get stalled out on this top floor for too long.
Replica manages to get a kill onto number 2 to start things going again, but it's K-Razor coming up big from the library stairs. Gets one, sprays down a second. He's got backup as well in the form of Afro, but 11 will be able to get in and get the kill onto K-Razor. And as you say, Des, once again, it's 11 doing the business for T1, but shut down, leaving us 1v1 for Afro here. Replica half health, Afro quarter health. This is all going to come down to a very quick exchange. Replica knows exactly where the man's likely to be. He doesn't take the shot past the reinforcement that might have just won him the round there, but he's going to step through, and as he does, Afro watching the angle, able to close down the game with a round. The round there with a final kill, and that leaves us 6-3 now, and the game almost going to FAV.
There's that kind of high risk, high reward play coming out of FAV as well. You're in a 3 versus 3. What do? You can just sit on site and wait for them to come and push in and use the strength of those angles, use the strength of split, for example, playing behind the bomb, or you can send 2 to aggressively push, playing for a trade-off feature, the up library stairs, to go and challenge onto the top floor. They get the knock, they put down a good challenge onto the remaining members of T1 on the top floor, and that just disrupts the whole flow and setup coming out of T1. forces them into that awkward 1 versus 1. Sure, once 11 kind of strikes big in getting the second kill in the 3 versus 3, but ultimately it's FAV who find themselves at match point. This would be what they need here, 3 points to elevate themselves at least temporarily above Guts, and it will all come down to Guts later on being able to win. I believe it's by any means to guarantee themselves a top 4 finish.
Going to be setting up in Master and Office then for what could be their final stand. Now, if we look at how things went in the first half defensively for T1, they lost Master and Bedroom first time around, which is exactly what FAV did on the defense. But then when they defended there for the second attempt, they were able to get it shut down. If that pattern continues, FAV will make their adjustments here and will be able to close things out and win the game. There are no more mistakes available for T1 now. The best they can hope for is overtime, but FAV, I just get the feeling now they've got themselves onto 6, knowing that they need that win, knowing that that's all they can do to help their own fate. I think they're going to be a very difficult team to beat here on this top floor defense.
I mean, with the change coming out as well, the Kaid now being on side, the Echo in play instead of the Smoke, for example. No IQ available for T1. We did see FAV bringing it along a couple of times in the first half. Just suggest a couple of changes here that might come out of the FAV setup. The very least of those being, of course, the electrification that will come through from the Kaid. It was the Mute that they lent on back in the earlier round, whereas Kaid, I think, is being very popularised. I wouldn't be surprised, actually, as the meta kind of wears on, that we start seeing Kaid bans on this map, because it can make that top floor really difficult to push into, especially when those electro cores are hidden away. Neilio finds the entry, finds a second, same as in the previous round. 2 big starting frags coming out, make it a third as 11 doubles up as well. We were speaking about this magical setup that might be a little bit different, but it's already been completely crushed by T1.
It really has. T1 just able to get in there like a sledgehammer to crack the nut that is the FAV Gaming defense. K-Razor just looking for those vertical angles, knows that there's players underneath, but he's unlikely to be able to find any as T1 keep themselves out of his scope and off the radar. 5 versus 2, there's absolutely no need for them to rush at this point in time. They've got plenty of time left available to them. They can just prod and poke and find out where these final defenders are. K-Razor gives his position away with a kill onto Neilio. Certainly worth the information exchange, but will now be pressured from Solarium window.
Hatch.
4 versus 2, those vertical angles work both ways, as K-Razor finds out after getting himself a second on the round, so he's now left Afro with it all to do. 1 versus 3.
Cheeky, if he gets onto the balcony here on time, he could find a freebie. They were watching and ready, but Afro almost losing guard against 11, both down to a slither of HP. 2 more from T1 playing up to the north. It's this 1 versus 3 for Afro. Not really a situation you see him walking away as the winner. Steps up to the rotate. Crazy Boy now in for the plant. 11 closes things out. Again, you can never count this man out as long as he is alive. And T1 keep themselves alive at least for another couple of rounds.
Nice attacking round. I think we'll probably see FAV look to defend elsewhere after trying Master again. Unsuccessfully for the second time, able to be closed down by the T1 attack there onto the top floor, able to get the win. Kitchen Dining will be the site. This was one that FAV won back in round 8. Shin getting a good start with a kill onto Yeti early in the round, really put them in the driving seat for that one. FAV, the last thing they want to do is let T1 back into this here. They don't want to be throwing points away. They want to put as many on the board as they can do, because, of course, they want to apply as much pressure as possible to Guts, and the fewer points they get, if it does go into overtime, that every single point could hurt them.
And FAV's got the head-to-head as well. You can't forget about that. That's the big advantage they have over Guts, is they did beat them. I believe it was on Playday 2. Could have been 3. Feels like a long time ago now. It's a good 5 or 6 weeks back. Let's see how this defense shapes up again, and keep a close eye on these Elo concussions, because throughout this half, at least in a couple of the rounds, we've seen them use as that kind of, not so much a proximity alarm, but it definitely gives you the awareness of, oh, someone's pushing us, they've come through this doorway, we've heard the concussion go off, and now we know we need to react and be aware of a push coming from that direction. So much so that at least in this round, Neilio is saying, okay, forget about playing the Nook, get me back on the sledge. If they're going to know I'm coming anyway, I would rather have that hammer to swing later in the round if needs be.
Ellerman just placed on the library stairs there. Shin just getting plenty. You can see there's a lot of utility in and around that bar gaming area. We've got multiple barbed wires, we've got Ellermines. It's all designed to slow, to burn utility, to provide information as well. Of course, the sound cues that come out of the barbed wire being destroyed do tell the defenders that the attack is coming, where the push is coming, what direction they are moving in from. The drones, they're going to push into library for the time being, try and get some of that vertical superiority, but it's going to be the initial push from south to north that they need to complete. They need to get themselves established into library. 11 goes in there, starts taking some ground and some map control, but it's mostly the push towards Master Office that's going to be the key factor for FAV here.
And there's another opening kill. So many rounds in a row. It was Neilio for the previous two, but T1 are starting these attacks well. They've kind of got that onus to step in and go aggressive, and finding the Echo here. Bit of a kicker to lose that one so early in the round. Sure, the shield's been deployed, but the Yokais are what you're looking for potentially to help you in the late round. The information, of course, still being given, can be observed from beyond the grave. With Neilio playing outside of piano, I'm looking towards those frags in back pocket to see what damage you can do with them.
Afro looking to get aggressive up onto this soft wall here. Just keeps himself out of the line of sight. Very well played, but the electrical gets cleared off. That's going to allow Replica on the Thermite to open the breach now, so pressure will mount on Afro. Takes a little peek onto the balcony, but no one to be found yet, as yet he keeps himself behind that half wall. And Afro, he has to dip out of there as the wall is opened up and pressure starts to mount with Zephyr utility raining in as well. Neilio into a frost mat.
Brilliant.
I thought I'd heard the snap. And that is the sledge down for the time being. Maybe collected, but they're going to have to be very, very careful about trying to do so. Yeti taking damage as well. Shut down. Afro is onto Crazy Boy. 4 versus 4, but Yeti manages to find K-Razor in his battle, and that leaves T1 at an advantage and likely able to pick up Neilio now.
They do need Neilio as well, because don't forget, we're looking at the downstairs site here. They want to be able to get him swinging that hammer. It's why you've got the sledge along. I mentioned earlier on, forget about playing the Nook. You need the hammer to get opening up the floors. So no doubt now that he's back on side, we'll find that start happening. No C4s on the side of FAV, so this should be quite plain and simple to open up some key vertical angles here, start thinking about the plant, but I do want to touch on that here with about 30 seconds to go again. We've got FAV being snaky, two of them on the road looking to go aggressive to get the diffuser down. They'll strike from behind. Afro finding the one. That's the shutdown you need. FAV have done this aggressive roam all game long, playing as a pairing, up library stairs, up snowmobile stairs, and have found themselves 2 big kills. That should be enough to shut 11 and Neilio out, but it's 11 ace.
You can never count him out. 1 versus 3, it's looking more and more difficult. He knows where the first is, gets one, knows there's a second. Challenge from the corridor. Great pinch from FAV to finish things off. It's Afro ultimately to step out from the fireplace and find that final kill, and that's going to be FAV just putting the pressure, putting the heat on Guts Gaming.
FAV's typical game style coming out there as well. High risk, high reward. You're in a 3 versus 3, you send 2 off to go into Narnia and come back out of Snowmobile to try and make a flank work, but it does pay off. T1 unable to control them here on Chalet. FAV doing all they can to give themselves the best chance